So Escom says the electricity system is vulnerable and that implementing stage 4 power cuts was inevitable. The power generator was forced to reintroduce load shedding yesterday, citing a loss of generating capacity. Escom describes the current situation as desperate. There could be cuts all weekend as its generation plants are unreliable and technical teams are unable to return units from planned and unplanned maintenance as scheduled. Asina Gori, SABC reporter, reports. All right, so we'll get back to that story in just a moment. Let's move on to other news now. The Gauteng government's Lebogang Maile has announced that the city of Tshwane will be placed under administration following allegations of maladministration and mismanagement, including service delivery failures and chaos in council. The local government says the move is to promote stability and strengthen the municipality's capacity. Maile, the MEC for Human Settlements, Urban Planning and Cooperative Governance, made the announcement after a meeting earlier on, a meeting of government's executive committee. He stressed that the move is not about politics. However, this afternoon, the Pretoria High Court granted an interim order suspending yesterday's ousting of the Tshwane Mayor and Speaker. Mpho Nawa is the Chief Director, Back to Basic, at the Gauteng Government of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Authority. A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for speaking to us.
Well, thank you very much, for operating to the listeners and audience.
Just your placing the metro under municipality, is it at all affected by the court order that we saw earlier on, the interim court order granted to the DA, basically reversing the ousting of the Speaker and the Mayor?
Not really. I mean, since 2016, there has been problems in the municipality, and the MEC thought it necessary to help stabilize the municipality, so it's not related.
So then your rationale for triggering Section 139 of the Constitution now, what is it?
As I said, you would remember that municipalities are expected to execute their executive obligations. And if there's a failure to that, the MEC has a responsibility to see to it that they bring back the municipalities to stability. And again, perhaps what is important to note is that the 139 is not a punitive measure, rather a restorative measure to get municipalities to function well and execute their executive obligations.
It's interesting that it's not a punitive measure, as you say. This is not the reading of the Democratic Alliance that says that they find just even the rationale of placing the municipality under the metro under administration for exactly the reasons that you cite. It's flawed. They're saying that, for instance, not only the Treasury but ratings agencies have said that the city's finances are stable, that services are being delivered. Is this untrue?
Well, it's untrue. You would know what is the recent report of the Editor General and how it replaced the city, but you'd know about the problems, Hammaskral, that there was no water, and a couple of things of service delivery, the cloud over the then city manager, the cloud of people who are not qualified to be in the city. So there are so many other things that would have happened in the city that are not...
Okay, we'll go to them according to the list. You say it's untrue, but Moody's did release a report in November which said that the Tshwane credit rating is improving, operating performance, that there's declining debt, and that it's steadily rising in liquidity. Did it not say that?
Well, the MEC determination of whether the municipality is doing well has nothing to do with the ratings. He looks whether people have access to services, whether the municipality is working well.
We're talking about its financial performance, and you said what the Democratic Alliance is saying is untrue. So well, I'm asking you now to reflect on this particular report. You say that's not what the Auditor General is saying. You say that's not what Treasury is saying. But so you say this is of no consequence.
Well, for me, it's not what determines the activation of the 139. The Constitution instructs that people must consider the following. If you are unable to provide or fulfill your executive obligations, you would then be forced to consider what can be acted. And I'm sure you would know that it's a responsibility and the constitutional responsibility of the MEC to say how do we get and restore the functioning of the municipality. You would know that since 2016, there has been a series of collapse of council a number of motion of no confidence in whether in the speaker or the municipal manager. So there's been a crisis in that municipality, to say the least. There's a governance crisis, actually.
But is that not born out of politics as well?
Of course. However,
so is it then correct that the MEC can say it has nothing to do with politics? How can it be about politics but not be about politics?
Well, you would know that the MEC has the responsibility to see to its functionality. And as he came into this responsibility, he has always called all councillors to see to it that there's proper governance. So you should separate what is politics and what is proper governance. And I'm sure the experience that we have had of collisions, that the collisions between the DA and the EFF might have not provided proper leadership for that municipality, and there's been problems about the ANC going to court. So there's always been a problem. I think what we need to split is that the MEC had a responsibility to see to it there's better governance.
And that notwithstanding, but I'm just saying to then simply rubbish the fact that politics do play a role, because you yourselves do cite the chaos in council as part of the reason for why you're taking this move. So there must be some admission that politics do play a role.
They do play a role.
In this decision.
Not in this decision.
How do you separate that? That's what I'm trying to understand.
The separation is that you would know that service delivery is the most important thing. And I think I've made a point that there's a need for us to be able to say the municipalities are providing, they are fulfilling their executive obligation. And if they fail in that obligation, the MEC has no option but to come in.
And that means the infighting in council between mainly the DA, ANC and EFF have caused, to some extent, a collapse of service delivery.
I would equally say the vulnerability of the administration. Remember in the beginning, the then municipal city manager was under the cloud of qualifications, whether there was concurrence from the provincial government. Since then, there was an issue about Glad Africa. Since then, there was a water problem.
Okay. So let's talk about the water problem. So the Hammanskraal water crisis, who is to blame?
Of course, the municipality must take responsibility.
The municipality from which period?
I would think that the municipality, when did the problem start?
So the MEC said even before 2016 there were problems in general.
In general.
So Hammanskraal, there are those who say part of the reasons are historical, bad waste and water management and confusion over boundaries.
Exactly the point. The focus of the MEC is not to look at when did it start. He has always been saying, let's support the municipality to restore water, to restore service delivery.
And I'll tell you why I ask you this, Mr. Nawa, because then the EFF Gauteng chairperson says it's very rich that the ANC comes and swoops in and says we are going to fix the Tshwane Metro by placing it under administration, when even by your own admission, the Mfuleni and West Rand municipalities have also been placed, districts have also been placed under administration. And the argument here is that they've done no better. In fact, they have further deteriorated, even under administration. Well,
you know this issue about administration. I'm sure we should reflect into it. The intervention of the provincial government has been Section 1B, which is not to take over, but to support. The provincial government has put up streams to support the municipality to come up from there. So you still have an executive authority, which is the mayor, the municipal manager, and the Section 56 managers who are employed. So it is more about providing support.
So having said that, then are you then not contradicting yourself? Because the first question I asked you, I said this decision that has just come out of the North Gauteng High Court with regards to the Tshwane Metro, which reverses the ousting of the Speaker and the Mayor, does it have any effect? And you said no, but now you're saying, but remember the role is to support. That means that you work with those executives. So which is it?
Well, I think let's go start properly. It's inherent that the provincial government must support all municipalities across, both national and provincial governments. That's Section 154 of the Constitution. And 152 says they must be able to provide their own obligation, which is to ensure that there's better democracy, there's economic development. Now, if a city or a municipality is failing to fulfill that, the law does instruct the MEC to intervene. And in this case, the MEC has intervened in Mfuleni, the MEC has intervened in the West Rand, and the MEC is intervening in Tshwane. So the issue is about intervening to ensure that you restore and you ensure that there's better governance.
And you've highlighted that it's about playing a supporting role.
Yes.
And the first question I asked, I said, would this have an impact? The North Gauteng High Court ruling, the interim order that suspends the ousting of the Speaker and the Mayor. What you have just said now is that if you look at Mfuleni and the West Rand, we must understand that you play a supporting role, meaning you work together with the executive. How can it not affect then the decision? Because that means it forces you to go back to work with the very...
The problem that you, perhaps the misunderstanding between me and you is to think that the MEC is acting on the court order, on the interim order, which came today, and this thing of the Section 139 has started long ago to say how do we help the municipalities.
It's not
so
that the understanding is that it's not that it's motivated by that. The question is, will it impact this move that you make? Because, and I'm borrowing from your own words, Mr. Nawa, that remember we play a supporting role, that we are there to help them. So then the tables have turned now. It means the chess pieces have now moved back to where they were. So that means you would have to play a supporting role for this council.
It's exactly the point. We can't disengage from supporting municipalities and understand 139 to be a supporting process. And that's why it's not about punitive, it's about restorative. And if you understand that what the MEC is doing is more about supporting the municipality. Why? Because the city must be able to provide and to fulfill its own executive obligations. And I've made a point that there has been a series of problems in that city that the MEC thought this is time to really pull up a team and do it. And let me make this point. The MEC has not actually unfolded, you call it administration. In actual fact, administration and dissolution comes at the 136, and the MEC has not even reached that point. He's still saying, how do we help to rebuild?
So what is your understanding then of Section 139, subsection 1? What you're doing now in
it's about instruction and giving a direction to say what needs to be. It's just directives. So it has nothing to do with A and B and C. And I'm sure if the municipalities are unable to come back, then he perhaps could start to applying the other subsections of the law.
All right. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Mpho Nawa is Chief Director, back to basic at the Gauteng Cooperative Governance, Government and Traditional Authority, saying that according to you, the Tshwane Metro is not under administration at the moment. Thank you very much for speaking to us. So we're so